Welcome everyone to the Graybeard Talks Geospatial. This is my live stream that happens every week. Tiffanee, can you hear me really well?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Hey everybody, today this is a great episode today. I'm joined by a fantastic guest. Her name is Tiffanee Lang. She's got a contagious smile, you can tell. And hopefully we'll have a really fun, wide-ranging conversation here. I told you earlier in the week about my little boo-boo on my head, but it's healing up really well. That means I'm healthy. I must be doing okay. We got 4 inches of snow here over the evening, and it's just a nice, peaceful afternoon. And Tiffanee, where are you calling in from?
Calling in from the sunny side of Las Vegas, Nevada, the one and only.
The one and only. We were having a prep meeting earlier this week, and I told her how I would never want to live there because it's so stinking hot. She said it's cold there now, though, right?
Yeah, no, we're actually getting some snow nowadays as far as Mount Charleston. Like, we had a completely cloudy day last week that you looked up, it was snow, but now it's actually getting pretty good. 85 degrees is, I think, what we're expecting this week, so it stays hot even if it's winter.
That's Las Vegas for you. That's good. Well, so today we're going to have a fun conversation. I think it's going to be fun. Our prep conversation was awfully fun. So if we can replicate that in some way, shape, or form, then we're going to be doing just fine.
Right on.
So I'm going to I want to, first off, I wanted to ask you to give a synopsis, a little bit about, where you're from and, kind of what your education was. If you do that for me.
Oh, right on. Okay. Well, I grew up here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Right. My folks were, given orders out of Georgia to come move out here. So we've been out here since prior to the Spaghetti Bowl, if you're local, prior to the Spaghetti Bowl, or right in 1999 that we came out here. And so I've grown up in Las Vegas, and I decided it was the awesome idea to pack up and leave and go to school in Kentucky, which is, the almost opposite. If you're understanding of geography, the almost opposite, right? Where we have kind of a flat terrain, they're nothing but hills. Where we kind of have certain demographic, they have their own demographic, right? But I had a fantastic time studying out there to come across or stumble upon geospatial information systems, or GIS, and haven't looked back since. Right.
Where did you go? Where'd you go to school? Where were
I went to Western Kentucky University, and I am proud to say, I'm a hilltopper from point A to B. And again, like I said, I walked into that campus ready to take on the world by a computer, and left being able to take on the world by map. So it worked awesome. I really enjoyed my education, and it's applied such a broader understanding and such a brighter future as far as being able to work out what can be done.
Yeah. Was your degree geography, or was it geospatial? What was it?
My degree was in systems management, and within that system management program, they definitely had they had concentrations, right? So I took on the concentration of computer information systems and geographic information systems, and it was definitely one of those times. I mean, this is for it being on campus, right? They still actually had a paper catalog. I'm sure they don't have it anymore, but they still had a paper catalog. And what caught my attention was you had to take, certain classes to get to a certain extent. And I saw something that said geography, and I love geography. I love maps. I was like, I can do this class, and got into that class and just fell in love with the concepts to the point that I was asking, the instructor at the time, how do you do this? How do you do this? And I think he knew because at that point he's like, nope, you get to find out in the next class. And so I switched up and took it on as a concentration. So my degree is in systems management, concentrated in computer information systems and geographic information systems.
Okay, very cool. That's extremely cool. I failed to mention those of you who are on the live stream today. Several of you on here. I hope that you could just put in the chat where you're watching, so that we have an idea of who's watching us. That'd be good for Tiffanee and I to be able to interact with you. I'd love it if you ask questions. I don't know if I teed this up exactly right, but I think this is going to be a discussion that's a little up here in the clouds. I hope it is anyway, because Tiffanee and I felt like we had a real rapport yesterday when we were talking about some of these issues that we really love, some of these things about maps and about location that we really love. So I hope that we can get into that. One side benefit of having Tiffanee on the live stream, though, is I don't have to try and decipher her emojis in the chat, because she's just like, she's pretty complex thinker, I guess. And I guess she writes the same way with symbols and letters. And I had a hard time, to be really honest. I'm asking for the future when you're watching the live stream. If you'll just spell it out. I'm 58, and sometimes the emojis kind of get past me a little bit. Anyway, so professionally though, you work for a health system in Las Vegas?
Yes, I do. I'm currently a data analyst for one of our major health insurers here in town. So it's definitely played a greater part in my understanding in our health management system, our healthcare, and serving people in such a way that leadership skills are necessary, of the utmost of necessary. So I really enjoy it, and it definitely takes on my 9 to 5. I always made the joke for people. I was like, I work for Superman during the day, and then Wonder Woman in the afternoon, and then by the time night comes around, I work for Batman, and I'm Batman. I'm Batman in that regard. So I also take on my personal project, or my personal group of Geoserve, which dishes out also developments with more geo driven than my day work, but they both take on maps and both take on location as a primary function.
Yeah, I want you to tell me a little bit about Geoserve. I got to show you this though. Did you see last week's live stream? Colin says if I had half the personality. Well, poor Colin. He just, we didn't get rolling until I got him laughing. And so I just have to remember that it's a good thing to get your guests laughing before you start. So.
Oh, absolutely. No, but I enjoy Colin's stream so much so, because it definitely hit me on the developer side. I was like, I feel for you.
yeah, for sure. So tell me about what you said, Geoserve? Is that what you call your company?
Geoserve, and serve is spelled SERVD. It was an initiative right when I had graduated out of college. You find yourself in that gap of what am I to do, right? I finally have this golden ticket, silver ticket nowadays, but I finally have this golden ticket, and I want to, I want, and silver, being from Nevada, we're team silver here. But,
you're just a team silver. That's it, team silver.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to enable, because I was still on within range of campus, and I still had resources in such a way that I felt like I could make the greatest impact as an individual. And so Geoserve, or a geospatial enterprise running various developments, was birthed from this idea that you can enable anybody with GIS, not GIS what they think GIS is, which is, for a lot of people it's just Google Maps or mapping from the atlas or from the book, right? But actually enabling people to use spatial decision-making tools for their small business, for their local groups, for their studies, basically being able to enable the smaller populations versus just the big players, and definitely bringing in greater tools than some of your proprietary tools you have today. So that's where it kind of came about, and it's always functioned as a more tech-driven initiative, but it's definitely always kept mapping in its foresight.
Yeah, no, you mentioned yesterday, just to follow on with that thought, like that people are really comfortable using the decision metrics of what and when, right? And that if we could just add to that the decision metric of where, then we'd have the whole picture.
Exactly. We can start stacking on further fact, right? Because as we discussed, when we have what and when, right? Those are prime facts, and not to get into a database aspect, but just for an event, those are prime facts that people take on, and a lot of people forget where, right? They tend to leave out where, and they get, they start with what and when, and then why or how, which are also very big analysis questions, or analytic questions, but they may be answered, or they may be supplied with the location in itself, so they tend to forget about it. And I want to bring it back to the front where it belongs.
Well, see, I think one of the reasons that happens, it's just, if you're asking me, one of the reasons that happens is because you have to have a special tool to do where, right? You have to have a map, and some people aren't spatial thinkers. Some people just aren't. We had talked yesterday about, you have a hobby of doing billiards, of playing billiards.
Yes, absolutely.
You play billiards.
I fashion myself to be a shark, but if I'm being realistic, I'm a guppy among sharks. within our pool community here. I always tell people, I was like, I'm a little fish. I don't have enough, power to eat anybody, but I can outswim.
You remember in Finding Nemo, you remember that the shark Bruce? Everybody.
Exactly.
I have a lot of people walk up to me and they say, "Good day, Bruce. Fish off food. Fish off friends, not food."
Not food. Exactly.
Anyway,
But,
so as a pool shark, that's the thing I was going to say. As a pool shark or a coming pool shark, location plays a factor in winning, right?
Yes, and it does. As far as now, are you speaking of the game, or are you speaking of the community itself?
The game. I think the game is like I bet most people don't think of billiards as a spatial game, but when you start to think about everything that's going on, the spatial strategy is pretty significant.
It is, and it definitely so. So like we went around to think that you have two different theaters, right? You have a 7-foot or a 7-foot theater or a 9-foot theater or a table at which we have to dissect this crash and analyze this crash. And what a lot of people tend to forget when it comes to billiards, like it is definitely a fun game, definitely a fun pastime. When we start getting into competitive pool or competitive cue sports, location matters at its utmost, right? And it's a constraint that you can use for you and you can put against your opponent. And so as of the last year or so, I've definitely started to develop tools and strategies based on the location of the balls to the pockets, but beyond that, to the abilities of my opponent, right? If I know an opponent can't make a long shot, then distance is my friend. If my opponent knows that I can't cut a ball, angles are their friend, and being able to place the balls in such a way that they can win the game and win it slowly if necessary. So yeah, no, it's the game.
In billiards, then, would you say that spatial thinking favors a winner?
Yes and no. Greatly yes. In the idea that if you have two high tier players, that yes, space will be the winning factor that two again high tier players can go about doing. But when it comes to your amateur players, right, spatial thinking is one side of it, whereas strategium using within that space, not necessarily spatial thinking, but spatial advantage, right? Spatial advantage for the amateur who may not have that perfect shot, not quite yet, but using the area, like almost like an area defense versus a man-to-man defense. It's kind of the same thing. So yeah, no, it's definitely something I'm still working on personally. So.
Yeah, but still clearly this spatial thinking, right? You're looking at the billiard table, and clearly someone that's thinking spatially, just has a sense for where everything needs to be and how it all comes together, and they build a strategy based on that table and the relationships of the balls to the pockets and to each other based on that table. So do you think, like, if you think about someone who might not be as good at that, do you think you can teach spatial thinking? Like, is that something that you think someone can learn, or do you think it's only born in people to have kind of a spatial thinking mind?
It is an innate trait, but it's definitely something that can absolutely be taught. Simply for the fact that if it couldn't, then a lot of my projects that I'm working on now wouldn't make sense to continue to pursue in the fact of AI or in the pursuit of a coaching book, right, or a coaching technology. But yeah, spatial thinking definitely be taught. As we were talking about yesterday, I cannot recall the movie or the show what it was, but just to say, in the same way of blindness, one way that if you have a grid laid out city or any type of routing, right? If I was to try to teach someone who was blind how to play pool, would that be possible? And I would say absolutely yes. It's just a matter of being able to take in those sensors and those informations. In the same vein, like if you are blind or you're visually impaired, right, you would be sat down, or a technique to learn how to get around in town is you'd be sat down with a wood board that replicates or that is visually the same as the streets that you would see. So you can teach that spatial being, right? Even if you don't have the sense of sight, you can teach that. If you don't have the spatial thinking to get somewhere here in town, right, we can definitely start making it towards where the markers enable you to start thinking or being able to start triggering whatever sensor or, whatever input works for that person. And it boils down to how people think, right? Or not how people think, what's the best way they learn. whether it be kinetic, audio, things like that. But yeah, no, spatial thinking is definitely teachable, and it's definitely something that has to constantly be taught. It's not something that, once you learn it, once you have it, it's done. It has to constantly be sharpened, right? And so when it comes to like this, the game, or when it comes to just even day-to-day life, is being able to enable people to realize that it's important.
Yeah.
It's important.
Well, you said a minute ago, you said that some of the projects you work on would fail if you couldn't teach spatial thinking. Sounds like you have something in mind there. Tell me a little bit about one of your projects that you might need to maybe coach people along in spatial thinking for that project to be successful.
Right.
You said something about like routing ambulances yesterday. What is that all about?
Yes, absolutely. So when you have a fleet in my case scenario, a fleet of ambulances, right? Those ambulances have to serve a neighborhood of people, and part of being an efficient ambulance service is being able to show up where and on time, right? And so with that in mind, if we have to put into a spatial thought, right, that this side of town is riddled with potholes, or that this side of town is not accessible in the speed that we have it, then we need to adjust our behaviors, or we need to adjust our service limits, or we need to adjust our service level based on the map that we have, based on the data we have. So like we were discussing yesterday, and it boils down to even having a knowledge, right, a working knowledge of how to care for this fleet. Because just because you have this service on the front end to get to a patient on time, or to beat like we say yesterday, to beat the pizza boy
Yeah.
for service, we have to make sure that these fleets stay up to date. And so if we know that a particular area is full of construction, which causes delay, a particular area has potholes, which causes more wear and tear to shocks or equipment, which drives up cost to maintaining these things. And if we know that we can't accessibly get somewhere because there's no exit off the highway, for example, here in town, you have a lot of people who feel like DI or Desert Inn, you can't get off Desert Inn from the I-15. And
Right.
And being able to be aware of that, not just from a map. If someone was looking at a map, of course they can see that, or excuse me, they can't see that from just a map. But that's a working knowledge that you have to incorporate. So just make sure I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you are. And I was thinking about your example of the pizza boy, for heaven's sake. Delivering a pizza to an address is fundamentally the same problem as delivering an ambulance to an address, with multitudes of different risk and different things that you would want to take care of in order to make those two things happen. There's not much at stake if the pizza doesn't get where it needs to go, right? It's a $12 pizza. How bad could it be, right? But if the ambulance doesn't get where it needs to go, or there's something in the way of the ambulance parking, or if the exit's not the right one, so they have to take 5 minutes longer, somebody might be there in cardiac arrest, and that is fundamentally more important and has a lot more risk built into it than the pizza delivery.
Right.
So it's interesting, I think, that they're the same problem, but the tool has to be a bit more sophisticated, and the analysis has to be quite a bit more sophisticated in order to take the risk out of it.
Correct. And it brings in an element of time of the essence, right, which is a legal term, but also a term that I incorporate into a lot of my day functions and a lot of my day projects, right? Because time is of the essence. Things change, and because the time changes, and this is how we get into that rabbit hole the size of a badger, right?
Yeah.
It's time in itself is a location, but a location that we have to pair with a physical space. It's a logical space.
Sure.
Which goes back to that spatial thinking, right? Being aware of the time, the time that it takes to do something. Because if someone's not, like you said, if your pizza is 5 minutes late, right? That 5 minutes is the same as 20 seconds late for an ambulance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's kind of a ridiculous example because it's kind of so apples and oranges, right? but it does kind of hone in on the problem. I think one of the things you're pretty enthusiastic. Linome says he concurs about spatial thinking. Someday I'm going to get Linome on here. He's going to he's going to tell us all about that. So you be ready, Lenome. Your turn's coming. Anyway, in terms of, I think one of the things you're very passionate about is integrating spatial data with other types of data. I mean, I think that you comment a lot about the integration aspects. Like what about integration of spatial data is the most exciting to you? What opportunities out there do you see for integration of spatial data?
One of the greatest integrations that I see is definitely being able to pair our spatial thinking to the next level, right? And going kind of back to what was my driving purpose for this entire set of skills, right, is to get us to that next level of computing. And that integration has to be in the forefront, or has to be, you know, the leader to what this is. So being able to integrate spatial analysis allows us to not only model, right, but remodel our understanding of how things work. And for me, that's where the integration of your physical location can now be buried down, because I always make the running statement too, is that, you know, I'm here to tame chaos, right? You get down to the next level of an individual or an object, and that has its own spatial qualities. And while GIS is the start, right, while we're working our way in or working our way out, we have to make sure that we take into effect that we are being cognizant of the horizontal aspects, right? And then, because horizontal seems easier, even though it's not, right? And then we have to be cognizant of the vertical integration. It's the same thing as far as like a business model, but it's in the same regard as data models as well. And so, like I said, I want to make sure I'm addressing that spatially. The integration is what takes place when we keep in mind, right, that location is the first fact, not the last fact.
Well, I'm sure that there would be a lot of data experts that would really argue with you on that. But being the geospatial geek that you are, I'm sure that for you, and I think for a lot of people, location is the first fact. So, but absolutely. I mean, philosophically, when you think about it, you know, where you are is, I mean, that's kind of the first thing. Anytime that there's a decision to be made that has anything to do with movement of any kind, right, then where has to be the first thing, because if you move, that fundamentally changes the analysis, right?
Straight up and straight out.
Lots of other things wouldn't change. Let's say you're carrying something on your back. You could move, and what you're carrying on your back doesn't change, right? So fundamentally, when anything that has to do with movement of any kind, you know, really that spatial analysis has to be the first fact, or else you kind of leave a whole bunch on the table. And I think that's kind of what we've been saying. Like for you, when you look at the future, what kinds of things do you want to be doing? What kinds of interesting computing? You said something about take computing to the next level, and I assume what you're saying by that is just using the machine for analysis, like machine learning and so on.
Machine learning for the sake of understanding, right? You have your AI, your machine learning, your data science. And not that I disagree with any of those terms, but it's one of those things where having to get people to nail those terms down, right? To nail it down and like what it is or what it is not. What I look for as far as the next level of computing is being able to have that balance of the human factor and the machine factor. Again, I've been going through more and twice over my library of how to get these two worlds, right? A world of machines, because again, I always let people know when people, one of my favorite phrases, Bruce, is the computer can't do that. I'm the computer. I can do that. I you know, this is a machine. I'm the computer. You know, like, and like I said, and it's the running joke that I have. But when it comes to trying to combine and have people use this machine as a tool that it is, right, to bring us that, I'll put it like this. I'm trying to bring science fiction to be less fiction in all science that is within our second nature today and presently. Mm-hmm. So anything and all things that you see, and that's one of the best things I love about this industry. And one of the things I love best about the growing technology, right, is that once upon a time it was on Twilight Zone. Now it's Thursday, right? It's another thing you see on Thursday. So what I'm excited for is I am excited for bio-based technologies. I am excited for space-driven technologies, and not just space as in your outer space, right? But even just the current space that we are on Earth, and I do imply on Earth. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for predictive technologies based on what we do know, and having the computer come across knowing that, because no computer, right? No computer, and I do say as a person, no computer wakes upon one day and learns all these things, right? It's the process of learning. And so I'm really looking forward to teaching technologies as well, because teaching and education are one of the highest, one of the highest gaps, right, of trying to get from nothing to a sculpted figure. So that's what I'm excited for is education technology, space technology, and biotechnology. But all technology is on my plate to get into. One thing or another. I got a running list here somewhere.
I just move out of the way a little bit and let everybody see all the books back there. I think you've got a few irons in the fire. Do you mind me asking how old you are, Tiffanee?
I am 28. So
you're 20.
The best year of Olympics and the best summer of I.
Well, I want to tell you, I think that you're a wonderful person. You've got a lot on the ball, and one of the things I like about you is that you're not afraid to dream, and you're not afraid to think big about things. Spatial, geospatial, geographic information systems, all that goes along with mapping and with spatial data. It's really kind of a niche field, but you somehow managed to look at it with a really big, broad scope. And that's really an exciting thing. I think that it opens up so many possibilities for you for the future. And so I hope to see you continuing to just be out there and be pushing the envelope. And like Colin says, making science fiction real. Cool. So that's we're all in your corner, and we'll be there to support you. Before we leave, anything that we missed that you thought would be fun to talk about? I'm in if you have something else that you wanted to talk about.
Nothing so much more than more applications of space and more application of spatial thinking, and of course just getting out and showing people that GIS, because one of my favorite questions I love going around asking people is, do you know what GIS is?
Yeah.
and a lot of people will be like, no, and they'll think about it. They'll think, they'll think of it, and they'll say GPS, and then just getting into a conversation, right? Just talking about GIS every day, talking about data every day, talking about technology every day. That's one of the things I appreciate most about the industry and the players in it. We all have that audacity, right, to change the world, because we see the world in such a different way and in such a different space. And being able to nurture the ideas that safely drive people in their communities into, again, that next level of computing, that next level of decision making, that next level of prosperity in life, is something that I really appreciate about our industry in particular. Like you said, it's a niche, it's always a small group that knows the map, but I just really find it fascinating, and I really find it to just be the place, right, where I want to be. GIS is where I want to be. And again, it's being able to combine and have an understanding of not just, because one of my favorite topics, AI, right? And people love AI, and they're thinking artificial intelligence. No, actual intelligence. Yeah, let's talk about actual intelligence and being able to take it to that next level. And you can't do it without location, right?
Yeah.
So my last ending stance is, when I say I'm building the infinite world in a finite space, I mean it. I mean it, and I'm taking, with science in one hand, I'm taking an artistic approach, right? No different than an artist with, say, a palette of hues, right? I'm taking it from an artistic approach to make it one location, one map, and one decision at a time to change this world, because I have the audacity to do so.
That's really cool to say it that way. Like you're taking an artistic approach, and to be honest with you, I could see that right away. As we talked, it's clear that it's probably a neat way to wake up every day. You wake up and you have a passion for location, and you see it not just as a job, but as an adventure and as a
Yes.
passionate, like an artistic passion. And that's
Yes.
that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, no, you hit it. I just told someone yesterday, I say, today I dream, for now I work. So
I got to get my head out of the clouds and get some work done, right?
Right. But yeah, no, but I love it, and I really appreciate. There you go.
James is one of my favorite humans. He likes that. He likes that word, that description, actual intelligence. That'll be fun. I'll try and use that too. When people say AI, I'll say, "Oh, you mean actual intelligence?"
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so let them know. But I really appreciate what you do for the community, Bruce. Again, just getting us all together and being able to be, the geo nerds we are.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. It's been great. It's been great to get to know you. I hope we have a long-standing friendship. And if there's ever anything that I can do for you, let me know. And folks, Tiffanee is on LinkedIn. So if you're watching, reach out to Tiffanee on LinkedIn, connect with her, right? And start up a conversation with her. I think you'll find her tremendously engaging. And this won't be the last time we talk. What we need to do, one of the things I want to do is get together a group, a very diverse group, African Americans, old people, young people, Hispanics, just a whole diverse group of people, and have a big round table about, everybody who's working in the geospatial industry. Because the way I look at it, it's such a big melting pot of different folks. And it's fun. That's what's one of the most fun things for me about being involved in geospatial, is that the diversity of people is just, incredible.
It involves everybody.
Yeah, all everybody. So anyway, keep in touch, okay? And let's get back together soon.
Absolutely. Stay mapping.
All right, Chael. See ya. Thanks everybody for coming today. Please tell your friends about the Graybeard Talks Geospatial every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We're trying to build an audience of people that will put it on their calendar, actually. And one thing I found out last week when I was working with one of my other folks here, I think Jim Reed was the one that worked with me to figure this out, is that if you don't see the notification for the live stream in your notifications on LinkedIn, you should go to your settings on LinkedIn. I think in the visibility tab, there's a place where you have to toggle a switch that says send a notification for a live video, right? And so if you don't see this and you don't know how to access it, and you got here because you're just good with computers or whatever, go into your settings in LinkedIn and fix that. And if there's ever anything I can do for any of you, give me a call, send me an email, whatever, DM me on LinkedIn. We'll take care of you. All right. Ciao, Tiffanee. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.